right, and we are back here on the GSMC football podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are going to discuss the injury report for this week. And towards the end of that first segment, now it's getting to that point where it's allergy season, and I could just feel my nose starting to run. So I had to, and that was towards the end of the segment, and I'm like, we gotta wrap this segment up quick because this is terrible that this is happening right now. So we'll go through the injury report here. So, the Broncos, they got some guys that are questionable. Frank Clark is dealing with an illness. DJ Jones and Baron Browning. I think it says they're out. And then Greg Dulcich. There we go. Okay, I know his name, and I know if you watch the baseball podcast, I have problems with names. Right now, he's questionable with the hamstring. But the three guys I just listed before that, it appears they are out for this game. I mean, I'm looking on CBS. So, Travis Kelce's got the ankle. George Karlaftis, he's got the hamstring. Tommy Townsend, their punter, he's dealing with a knee injury. So they're all questionable. I think Kelce's going to play tonight, right? Should. Well, let's check old Sleeper here for fantasy and maybe see if that tells us anything. So I'll go. Well, I don't have Kelce on any of my teams, but I'll have to go to one of my friends who has him. And, it says he's expected to play. So, yeah, I figured that was going to be the case. Then we'll go to some of these other games. So, Jadeveon Clowney. So, we got the Ravens and the Titans. So, Jadeveon Clowney, he's dealing with an illness. Odafe Owe, dealing with an ankle. And safety, Geno Stone, they all didn't practice. Odell Beckham Jr., he was limited after leaving Sunday's loss to Pittsburgh with an ankle injury. I mean, Odell's just dealing with it. It's just unfortunate, what's kind of happened to Odell Beckham Jr. because he was once, on his way to being, the best receiver in the league. And, I mean, after, the Giants traded him, it's just kind of gone downhill from there. And, even before that, I mean, he tore his ACL in 2017. And, yeah, it's just ever since then it's just gone downhill from there. So, yeah. And then offensive tackle Morgan Moses, he was limited after being inactive during last week's loss to the Steelers. So, I mean, listen, the Ravens are just dealing with a ton of injuries right now. So, yeah. And then for the Titans, Treylon Burks, he's got a knee injury, and Jeffrey Simmons has got a shoulder. They haven't practiced, but Simmons says he plans to play on Sunday, so that's encouraging for the Titans. When it comes to Commanders-Falcons, not many major injuries for Washington right now. Curtis Samuel, he has a finger injury right now, something like that, but he was a full participant in practice. So, and then for the Falcons, Bud Dupree is dealing with the wrist. Caleb McGarry is dealing with the knee. Jonnu Smith with an ankle. But they were limited, so we'll see what happens with that. Khalil Herbert, now we're moving on to the Vikings and Bears. Khalil Herbert, he's going to miss, I think it seems, a couple weeks. So, their rookie running back, Johnson, he had a concussion. So Deontay Foreman's actually going to finally play because, they signed him and they have not really used him that much. It's been Johnson and Herbert, running the ball, and they've done a good job there. So with those injuries, Deontay Foreman's gonna, start playing. Equinemius St. Brown has a hamstring. Eddie Jackson's still dealing with a foot, and actually Cole Kmet appeared on the injury report. He's got a hamstring. They were limited participants in practice. And this isn't good for the Vikings, although I feel like he is going to play. Jordan Addison's dealing with an ankle. He was limited, he's going to get a bigger workload now with Jefferson being out. So if if he's out, then you got KJ Osborne as your number one wide receiver, and then you also still have Hawkinson as well. But even here it says the Vikings had every player practice in some capacity, outside of Jefferson. So so that's the injury report on that front with that game. Then the Seahawks and the Bengals. DK Metcalf still dealing with a rib injury. Damian Lewis an ankle. Kobe Bryant has a toe injury. Artie Burns hamstring. They were all held out. So yeah, that's not good on that front. Charlie Cross, their tackle, he's dealing with the toe. Phil Hayes, their guard, is dealing with a calf, and Jamal Adams, he suffered a concussion against the Giants, and linebacker Jordan Brooks has a knee, and they were all limited. T. Higgins, who missed last week against the Cardinals, he was a limited participant on Wednesday, along with starting cornerback Awuzie, dealing with a back injury, and both players are labeled day-to-day according to Zach Taylor. But it's encouraging that they both practiced in some capacity. So, with the 49ers and the Browns, Dre Greenlaw, George Kittle, and Trent Williams, they just had rest days. Elijah Mitchell, he's still dealing with a knee injury. And, listen, when he plays, he's good. It's just, guy just cannot stay healthy. And then also Aaron Banks, guard, he was limited. Deshaun Watson, again, did not practice due to his shoulder injury. And it says if he's unable to go, it's going to be P.J. Walker that gets the start. So it's not going to be DTR because, he started a couple weeks ago against the Ravens. But P.J. Walker, who was basically the XFL MVP, and, won some games for the Panthers last year, he would be in line to start. Joe Bitonio, Myles Garrett, and Njoku, they all didn't practice. So, that's not a good sign because, obviously now if Watson misses, and they're going up against the 49ers this week, so, that's not good. Mari Cooper was given a rest day. Jerome Ford was limited, and Ethan Poschik was limited. He's got a chest, a knee, and a foot injury. That's not good. That's really bad. Panthers and Dolphins. Miles Sanders, he's dealing with the shoulder injury. Derek Brown, Brian Burns. Those are some of their good players. And Panthers right now are 0-5. I mean, going up against the Dolphins now, it's not good. It's not good. And then on the other side, you got Jalen Phillips and Jeff Wilson. They practice in a limited capacity. They're going to need Jeff Wilson, the Dolphins, just because now with Achane being out, and most are dealing with some injuries. I mean, Jeff Wilson's going to play a role in their backfield now, with some of the injuries they're dealing with. Obviously, we talked about Anthony Richardson. He's on injured reserve. Mo Alley Cox is dealing with a concussion. Braden Smith dealing with a foot and a wrist. They were the only active Colts who did not practice. So I guess that's good. So the Colts are going into this game relatively healthy. Zay Jones, only player who didn't practice for the Jaguars. I mean, this is going to be a competitive game. I really do believe that. And it's also a Gardner Minshew revenge game. The Jags, they picked up a huge win against the Bills on Sunday to get themselves back on the right track. But, the Colts, they gave him some problems in week one. And I know that was with Anthony Richardson, and now he's not there. It's going to be Minshew. But Minshew is a serviceable backup. And, I think the Jags, they haven't looked so great this year. So we'll see what happens. But I expect that to be a competitive game. Olave and Cameron Jordan, they were limited for the Saints. Derek Carr was a full practice participant. Obviously, he was dealing with the back injury, shoulder injury. Olave's dealing with the toe. Cameron Jordan's dealing with the back. So, Tank Dell's dealing with a concussion. Laramie Tunsil, a knee. They didn't practice. So, that's big going into this game. I mean, listen, C.J. Stroud's been good. Now he's got to go up against this defensive front for the Saints. So it's not going to be easy, but, we'll see what happens. Raiders and Patriots, Juju Smith-Schuster, Demario Douglas, they didn't practice. Trent Brown, Trey Flowers, they were limited participants. I I think this is a game that the Patriots could win, but we'll see. Devontae Adams for the Raiders. He was a non-participant due to his shoulder injury, but I mean he played on Monday, so he's probably going to play this week as well. And then the Raiders, I mean Max Crosby, Marcus Epps, David Long Jr., Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker. They were all limited, but I'm assuming they're all probably going to play. The Cardinals, Marquise Brown was not practicing due to an illness. A lot of illnesses. Elijah Higgins' illness. Jalen Thompson dealing with the hamstring. So they all didn't practice. Keontae Ingram, Garrett Williams, Jonathan Ledbetter. They were all limited. So that's for the Cardinals. For the Rams, Kevin Dotson, Ernest Jones, Laurel Murchison, Joe Noteboom, who's a big name that's on the offensive line. He was limited. But, I mean, I think this is a game the Rams should win. I mean, again, we'll talk about it tomorrow. But, yeah, so that's the injuries going into that game. Eagles at Jets, Darius Slay, he didn't practice. Fletcher Cox, he was limited, and Nick Sirianni said we'll see when asked about his status. And then on the Jets side, DJ Reed was limited, but it seems like for the most part, the Jets are coming into this game with all their guys playing. Obviously, last week Vera Tucker tore his Achilles, which was a huge loss. So I mean, Fletcher Cox doesn't play. I mean, I guess it's good for the Jets. They don't have to deal with him, in this game, but we'll see. For the Lions, Amon-Ra St. Brown was limited. Jahmyr Gibbs didn't practice. Brian Branch didn't practice. But St. Brown, he missed last week, so hopefully he's back for the Bucs. Mike Evans was the only player on the Buccaneers that didn't practice. So we'll see. And the Bucs are definitely going to... Todd Bowles is saying that the veteran is coming along and that the team would have a better idea of his status by Friday. So we'll see. But yeah, that's the injuries from there. Daniel Jones, Wan'Dale Robinson, Andrew Thomas, Darren Waller, they didn't practice for the Giants. So they're already dealing with injuries to Barkley and Andrew Thomas, but now if you don't have Waller and Daniel Jones playing, and that game is still on Sunday night. It's just, but we'll see. If you watched the show yesterday, I said they shouldn't play Daniel Jones. And I still stand by that. And also they have Saquon Barkley as limited on Wednesday, so maybe he makes his return on Sunday. Both tight ends for the Bills are limited. Dawson Knox dealing with the wrist, Dalton Kincaid a concussion, but they were both limited. Dane Jackson dealing with the foot. And Balon Spector, they opened up the 21-day practice window for him, so he's designated to return. So we'll see. And they don't have any updates on the Chargers and the Cowboys. But yeah, those are all the injuries. I tried to run through every single game, which I pretty much did. Yeah, that's the injury report. So we got a lot of injuries. We'll see what happens tonight. Of course, I'll preview that in the final part of the show. So with that, we are going to take our second break of the show. And then when we come back, we are going to talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And are they legit? They got a 3-1 record right now, leading the NFC South. So we will get into that when we come back from our second break. So stick around, and we will be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.